The tallest B&M inverted roller coaster in the world opened at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg in March of 1997. Since then, it has still held the title for the tallest. It has a drop of 170 feet and 6 inversions, under 4,000 feet of track. And this was actually one of the earliest reviews that I ever published to Coaster Studios. At that point, I was not a big fan of this coaster, but since then, I have acquired a new opinion of it. And so I felt it was time to take a new look at this and see how it stacks up. So a couple things I want to get into first. The ride is located in the German section of the park. It has a runaway ski lift theme. Alpengeist means ghost of the Alps in German, so it has a snow beast theme. And most of the theming you're going to find for Alpengeist is actually located in the entry plaza. I'm not going to go into all the details because actually there's quite a bit of cool little spots here. But in general, I like how they tied the roller coaster into some of the neighboring shops. You'll see snow all around the plaza, some signs for Bob's Ski Shop. Unfortunately, we don't see that same level of detail once we get into the queue, and the station is pretty minimalist as well. As for theming during the ride, there's a couple of small moments, but none of it you're really going to notice during the actual experience, with the exception of the snow at the very end of the ride as you're going around that final helix. One of my favorite pieces of theming here is as you're going down the bottom of the first drop, as you're making your way into that Immelman, they have a wooden building there where you see some skis like they're going off the ramp, and what you realize is you are taking the place of the skier and you're about to go off a jump, and that's when you go into the Immelman. You see some tracks there for where other skiers went off, and you see a pair of skis left over, clearly where someone flew off. It's little details like that that I love. In my opinion, one of the coolest pieces of theming that they did here is a practical piece of theming. It's how they did the lift hill. If you've ever taken notice to Alpengeist lift, the support structure is not like any other invert in the world. It's because it was specifically done for Alpengeist to look like a ski lift. Right away, it gives it a very different look. A good one, might I add. As I mentioned, the ride has 6 inversions. Those are an Immelman, a vertical loop, a cobra roll, a zero-G roll, and a corkscrew. Those are 5 different elements, but of course the cobra roll counts as 2 different inversions because it flips you upside down twice. Now, those who remember the old review I did of this coaster, one of my biggest complaints with this ride was that it was rough, which is interesting because B&M rides for the most part are always considered very smooth. There are definitely some rides that have developed a rattle or some shakiness over time, and this ride is over 20 years old, but there are some B&Ms that are significantly younger than Alpengeist that are a whole lot rougher, and yes, I am looking at you, Banshee. So in that old review, what did I mean when I said rough? At the time, I think I was just using a poor choice of words. The parts where it might feel a little rougher because there are some very abrupt transitions on this coaster. And there are 2 in particular. The first is on the cobra roll, and the second is on the bank turn heading into the mid-course brake run. These are moments that you really need to brace for. If you aren't expecting a jolt, then you will probably slam your head into the restraint and it's not going to be fun. The one you really need to watch out for is that first half of the cobra roll. You're rising up and you violently jank to the side. Exiting the cobra roll isn't as bad, but the ride enters that element at such a fast speed, and they just didn't have any space to stretch it out. I can see how that can ruin a lot of people's ride experiences. I think it really did for me until I learned how to ride this. That's why my advice always is to keep your head forward during this layout. If you do that and just put your body in a defensive riding position, then you could actually enjoy this coaster. That all being said, I still would not say that this ride is a glossy, smooth experience. If you want that, Griffin is right across the midway. Alpengeist has some moments of really intense positive G-forces where the train does do some shuddering. Like I said, keep your head forward and it's not too bad, but when you factor in some of those really intense moments with the fact that the train is almost jittering a bit, it isn't often the most pleasant experience. I've often wondered why a ride like this might do that, but then other B&Ms don't. I've heard some people theorize it could be with the foundations. Another reason I think could be the pure scale and size of the ride. A lot of those smaller, more compact inverts have stayed smoother than maybe some of the larger ones. I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear from someone from B&M that might know more on this. But if that kind of thing doesn't bother you, then there's a good chance that this will probably be one of your favorite inverts. I do take that kind of thing into account. So for me, this has always been a mid to lower tier invert. Also just because I don't think it has the strongest layout. Doesn't mean it has a bad one, but I have had the chance of doing a lot of different B&M inverts around the world, and I've kind of realized that I myself prefer the smaller, tighter, more compact inverts. A ride like Alpengeist is so huge that I almost wonder if there's a reason why there aren't any inverts that have been built since that are bigger than Alpengeist. I think when inverts really thrive are when they're a bit smaller and more compact. Look at something like Nemesis or Black Mamba. Shows you that size is not not everything. So let's walk through this layout. Starting things off, when you depart the station, you go up a very loud lift hill. Good luck talking to the guy sitting next to you as you go up it, because you won't be able to hear a thing. When you crest over, you have a great view of Griffin directly ahead, and you bank to the right and begin swooping underneath your lift hill, reach speeds of 67 miles per hour. Your first inversion is this massive Illumin. It throws you straight up at the sky, twisting out at the top, and you plunge back down into a vertical loop. This is a pretty standard loop found on a lot of inverts, nothing really to talk about here. And I've already discussed the Cobra roll, so I'm just gonna skip past that. I will say though, this is a fun little climb that it does as you're going from the bottom of the Cobra roll up to the mid-course. You actually gain quite a bit of elevation to get up there. Now, most of the time, it's not a hard stop at this mid-course. You typically just slide on through. This is effectively the halfway point of the coaster. From here, you dive through a cool little piece of theming and under a bridge, and that's what takes you into your second to last inversion, which is a 0G roll, really nice and floaty, pretty graceful compared to the rest of the ride. And after that, we have a corkscrew, and just everything after that is just very bland. It is crawling into the brake run. There's a low to the ground helix back there and a gradual turn into the brake run. And I don't know the exact speed you're going by the time you hit that moment, but it does not feel very fast at all. So does Alpengeist end with a bang? Not even close. Now, if that doesn't bother you, then great. But personally, I like it when the ride keeps a great pace from start to finish. And that is something that I feel like Alpengeist fails at, which is so interesting because the ride is so huge. You can see it from various points in the park. It's almost a hyper coaster. It is 5 feet away from being a hyper. So how does a ride that tall lose so much of its speed by the end? So all in all, I think Alpengeist is an enjoyable ride if you're a fan of intense roller coasters, positive G-forces, as well as terrain coasters. I mean, to an extent, this ride does use the terrain to its advantage. It has some great interactions with the log flume, but like I said, I really just feel like it's lacking in the second half. And personally, because I'm not a big fan of the Cobra roll and that transition into the mid-course, that does drop this on my list of inverts, which is why I do put it near the bottom. But Alpengeist absolutely has its fans. I know people where this is their favorite ride at Busch Gardens, and I can absolutely see why. Which brings us to our final score. I'm giving Alpengeist a 7 out of 10. When I reviewed this ride in 2014, I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Does that mean Alpengeist has gotten better over time? No. I think I've just learned how to ride it. But that's going to do it for this review. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.